Hi, so we have Ryan Hemphill here, and I'm gonna start this Ryan's Ramblings or Ryan's Rants first video because I've been trying to get him to spout all this stuff that he just completely makes sense, and it's just the world needs to know and get a contextual clue. So today's first episode of Ryan's Ramblings, we were talking about innovation and invention, and how our system can't even see what they're not doing or something like that. I can't even. All right. Anyway, so Ryan, start us from the beginning.
Okay, first of all, in general...
How did we get here?
Well, the real thing that we were talking about originally was how Americans have a very kind of absurd definition of innovation in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that your average American doesn't really understand what an innovation is. And I don't say that, like, granted, I come from a family filled with scientists, engineers, and lots of inventors, right? So several generations deep of inventors. But one of the things that we know, because we've done a lot of invention in my family, is that there's actually a legal definition for what qualifies as an innovation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not some subjective, well,
here's what I think.
Here's my opinion on it versus, your opinion, and it's like, and we can have throw different facts at it.
Yeah. Alternative facts.
There's no alternative facts on this thing. If you do an innovation, the innovation has to be, according to the patent office, a 10% change. So there has to be a meaningful change off of what has been done before, the history of that particular, product or service.
It needs to be 10% better than the last.
It needs to be 10% different. Not necessarily better, but it needs to be 10% different.
It can go in either direction.
So the thing is that there's a lot of these cases where you see people talking about innovation. And there was this book that I've actually been reading called Monetizing Innovation. And they were giving this primary example of how Porsche had created this SUV and how this was a perfect example of monetizing innovation. Now, don't get me wrong. They definitely made a lot of money off of this. I think it was the Cayenne. I think that was the name of it. It was the Cayenne.
Oh, the Cayenne, yeah.
Cayenne. Yeah.
So, I did see that all over the place.
And it makes a lot of money, and apparently it outsells a lot of other SUVs, and they're doing really, really great. So there's no question that they're monetizing it well. But to call it an innovation simply because you went and asked the customers, what they wanted, it's like, do you want bucket seats? Do you want, like the little... How many cup holders do you want in the middle?
Right.
And this stuff is like...
They did their research on their demographic.
Right. They did their research. They did their homework. But none of those things, not even as a whole, but also not individually, counts as innovation.
Right.
How many different, whether you have bucket seats or not in an SUV is not an innovation.
Right.
That's not, I think we can all agree.
They're just seats and variations on a seat.
Right. It's not a 10% change.
Right. A seat is a seat.
It's not even close.
Right.
So the irony is that while they were touting in this book that it was this, perfect demonstration of monetized innovation, the fact is that it doesn't actually fit the definition of innovation. And so if you look down here, we have a tiramisu.
Yeah.
Right? So everybody knows what a tiramisu is.
Yeah.
So the really funny thing that we were kind of ending up this whole entire conversation with is that this is an actual tiramisu. Tiramisu has a lot of specific qualities about it.
Yeah.
Right. So then... the interesting thing is Bertucci's came up with a rather silly thing.
Oh, yeah, Bertucci's.
They came up with a silly thing. They came up with this thing that they called, a deconstructed tiramisu.
Yeah.
As if this was some kind of art form, right? Which I think basically was to make sure that when they had to go do a delivery, and it was probably going to end up getting like smushed. And knocked around, and it was going to get half destroyed, they're like, well, it's a deconstructed tiramisu, so that's okay. I think that's the whole reason why they did that. Which give them points for cleverness.
Yeah, right.
Give them points for cleverness.
Okay.
But the real point here is a Pertucci's deconstructed tiramisu is an innovation.
Oh dear.
Compared to the Cayenne. The Cayenne is not an innovation. The deconstructed tiramisu actually counts.
Actually counts as an innovation in that area.
Because it's at least a 10% change. So I know that sounds silly to all of you.
The deconstruction.
But you need to redefine your definition of what is an innovation. And what a lot of people in technology are calling innovations, like the next version of the Apple, Apple's next version of their next cell phone and everything else that they produce. When there's these small little tweaks,
that's not innovation.
They don't really count as innovation.
According to the patent office.
According to the patent office, because it's not
the definition.
It's not more than a 10% change. So just take that into account. And make sure that when you hear somebody saying how they innovated, take it with a grain of salt.
Well, there you have it. Ryan's rantings. We're going to work on that name. Number 1. Bye.